I followed a first-time mother's routine from the 1930s. Okay, where do I begin? Well, it all started when I was given this book, the Modern Housewife's book, published in 1930, where Aunt Kate gives women all the tips and tricks that they could possibly need. And a huge thank you to my Auntie Carol for giving me this. It is genuinely a treasure trove. And within its jam-packed pages was an entire section targeted at young mothers. And so, in the spirit of Mothering Sunday in the UK, being this Sunday, I wanted to try my hand at a young mum's daily routine during the Great Depression. And for this, I'm going to need some help, and so I introduce to you Emily, a hyper-realistic reborn doll designed to replicate a baby's features and weight. And as for my day with Emily, thankfully I didn't have to look very far, because Aunt Kate provides an entire daily routine for a young mum, broken down and time-stamped. But before we dive straight in, let's rewind a little to the life of an expectant mother, and what the recommendations were for a healthy pregnancy. The waiting months. This was a time for a mother to prepare for the baby without hurry, to make baby clothes, arrange for the confinement or birth, and arrange for the baby's accommodation in her home. During this time, some mothers may be on a strict diet as recommended by their doctor, depending on their measurements at the first consultation, to ensure a small baby. And I quote, "There is no advantage to having a large baby. In fact, there are disadvantages even in the ordinary, normal case." Mothers would also need to see a dentist to avoid the danger of decaying teeth and subsequent fatigue. And as far as that old saying goes that a mother should eat for two, well, this is allegedly nonsense. Instead, Aunt Kate recommends that she should breathe for two, which of course means that she should get plenty of fresh air. And no matter what room she is in, day or night, there should always be a window open. And at night, the door should always be open to give a constantly moving current of air. A mother should also enjoy a warm bath before bed and a warm sponge down followed by a cool one in the morning. And all garments should be light and airy, and so strictly no corsets or garters should be worn. Her diet would be fruit, vegetables and salads, with heavier foods, fine white bread, pastry and meat reduced to a minimum. Egg, milk, cheese and wholemeal products are good, and fish is extremely good. But tinned foods, spicy dishes, pickles, pork, game and fried foods should be rigorously avoided. She is recommended to drink 6 glasses of water a day, and barley juice and fruit juices are also recommended. She should have 3 meals a day with no snacking, and the chief meal should be had at midday with no eating after 7 p.m. She also needed to decide where to give birth, a nursing home, hospital or in the house. A birth at home can be less costly, but it does mean providing all the necessary supplies, which included 2 Macintosh sheets, one a yard wide to go under the drawer sheet, the other 1.5 yards wide to go over the mattress, 1 large and 1 small accouchement sheet, 1 pound of cotton wool, 1 pound of gamgee tissue, 3 dozen sanitary towels large and 3 dozen small, 2 hot water bags, a slop pail with lid, Lysol, carbolic soap, castor oil, a bedpan, a feeding cup, a medicine glass and large safety pins. Of course, a nurse will need to already be engaged with the mother and present at the birth, but arrangements must be made with a friend or relative to attend to any matters around the house in the weeks after the birth, as this is not in the nurse's duty. In the old days, mothers groped, as it were, in the dark from the very moment they thought a child was coming. Every little sign and change perplexed them, and seemed something only a doctor could help. But all that is changed nowadays. Motherhood, sane, happy, efficient motherhood, can be the lot of every sensible mother. It is a career, the same as marriage is a career, and the young mother should study and fit herself for it as she would for any business undertaking. As in marriage, there should be the beautiful bond of love, and no child should come unwanted and unloved. A mother's love, tempered by common sense, is a most important factor in a child's early life. And so, the modern mother faces motherhood not with the thoughts of semi-invalidism and extra worry, but with courage and common sense, and a heart overflowing with love for the gift she is to give to the world. And now back to the calming daily routine of a young mother and her baby. Except that any mother will know that the routine did not start here. Yep, I'm doing this thing properly, and so I'm using a series of alarms to replicate some nighttime wake-ups for little Emily, and the first one is at midnight. So it is just after midnight and Emily has woken up for the first time. I think we've got more than a couple of times that she's going to wake up before morning, but this is the first. She only had her last feed at 10 p.m, so it's only been a couple of hours since I went to bed, which feels great. But for this first one, I'm just going to try and soothe her back to sleep, and then hopefully get my head down again. And for every time that Emily wakes up, I have set myself a further 10-minute timer so that I've got some time in order to soothe her or feed her, and 10 minutes I felt was kind of a good average, although I appreciate it might take mums a lot longer to soothe their babies back to sleep, or maybe a lot shorter. But I've got at least 10 minutes of this before my head is allowed to hit that pillow. Don't quite know why I'm sneaking around, because she isn't actually real, but I think it kind of adds to the entire panicked effect that a young mother might have experienced at any point in history. See you in a couple of hours. So it is currently just gone 2 o'clock in the morning, and Emily has woken up because she wants a feed. And so what I'm going to do is I've got some pre-made formula, and I'm going to heat it up the 1930s way and then give her a feed, and then hopefully she'll settle again for at least another couple of hours. To warm up her milk to an appropriate temperature, we're going to gently boil some water in a saucepan and then pour it into a large jug, and then after a few moments we're going to sit the bottle in the jug until the milk has warmed. And as I'm feeling the effects of interrupted sleep, I figured that only a cuppa could see me right. Emily's formula has been pre-prepared, and we'll get to that later. Now that the bottle has been sitting in the hot water for a few moments, I'll then test it with a thermometer to check that it's at the right temperature. Side note, I genuinely believe that mothers secretly have 8 hands. See you in 2 hours. As morning approaches, Emily wakes up again for some comfort before going back to sleep, which doesn't leave me a whole lot of time before my alarm goes off for Emily's 6 a.m. feed as per Aunt Kate's routine. So it is currently 6 a.m. in the morning, and I have gotten up to make Emily some milk, and because I'm not breastfeeding, it would be typical for women to use cow's milk, but the milk would have to be altered slightly before it could be given to a baby. So what they would do is they would get the cow's milk and they would slowly bring it to the boil, and then they would thin it with a bit of water and then sweeten it with a bit of sugar or sometimes bicarbonate of soda to help with digestion. And then they would allow it to, or they'd test it with a thermometer and allow it to cool to the appropriate temperature, and then that would be what they would give their children. You could get modified milk, which is basically milk where all of that stuff has already been done to it. It's already been thinned, it's already been sweetened, but this was quite expensive, but it was an option for many women who weren't breastfeeding. The milk itself wasn't incredibly nutritional in value, and of course this was before the introduction of specialised formulas. Like, this is the kind of thing that women would use because the formulas that we know today just weren't around in the 1930s. And they would also sometimes pop in a bit of anti-ricket vitamins, which I think the purpose of those are pretty self-explanatory. Yes, last night was interesting. And I know I'm going to get so many people laughing at me because obviously Emily is not a real newborn. She's not a real baby. So she's not really getting me up in the night. I just got up the amount of times, on average, a sort of 3-month-old baby would get a young mother up. So I got up about, well, this is my 4th time. Maybe to some people that's nothing, but this is my 4th time that I've been up. I'm not the best without my sleep. I really value my sleep. I'm like a nap. If I can get a nap in the day, I've won at life as far as I'm concerned. I love my sleep. I love napping. And sometimes I actually do suffer from a little bit of insomnia. That's been happening more recently actually, which has been really frustrating. So yeah, not getting a good quality sleep and having it interrupted pretty much every couple of hours, it makes me feel very, very groggy. Very groggy. And obviously we've got an early start, as per the routine, for Emily's first feed. So already, it never stops.
Aunt Kate's book very much recommends breastfeeding, but she also states that humanised milk mixtures could also be an option. However, these were expensive and required accurate measurements and preparation. Breastfeeding was found to be so important that even if the mother required a sudden operation for some reason, it was highly encouraged that the baby only miss a couple of feeds at most due to the mother recovering from the anaesthetic.
And then the last thing they would do is they would get your typical flannel and they would wrap that around the bottle to keep it warm as they transported it to their baby for a nice morning feed, which is what we're going to do right now.
And voila! We're back here again. It was said that a baby loses weight during the first few days and then regains their birth weight on about the 12th day. After that, the baby should be gaining around an ounce a day, and it was recommended for mothers to keep a weight chart to monitor this and notice if there were any dips in weight or excessive weight gain.
So what was supposed to happen is after Emily's 6 a.m. feed, I was supposed to go back to bed until around 7, and then I was meant to get up and make myself breakfast, but that very much didn't happen. I can't quite tell you why, but somehow I lost track of time. It's now pretty much 7:30, so I didn't go back to bed. I just went straight downstairs and made myself some porridge, and basically my entire day is going to be revolved around Emily's feed times, which should not be disturbed. That's what Aunt Kate very much recommends. So my whole day is around when she needs feeding, and at the moment she's supposed to be fed at 3 hourly intervals until she weighs around 7.5 pounds, and then it should be 4 hourly intervals, and each feed should last around 8 to 10 minutes. The book really does stress a routine and a structure, basically saying that a baby that is good with routine is the best kind of baby. And so according to Aunt Kate, Emily should now sleep until around 9 o'clock, which will give me a chance to get other things done around the house, like housework and things.
Between the hours of 7 and 8, I have my breakfast and then pick out what to wear before Emily has another feed at 9 a.m. Then it's time for housework and the baby's washing.
So Emily is currently sleeping, so we're going to take this opportunity to do a spot of housework, and the first thing we're going to do is wash the rubber teats that go on the end of Emily's glass baby bottle, because in the 30s it would have been glass bottles that mothers would use. And to wash the teats, you would run them under cold water, and then you would use a pinch of salt to wash the insides and get rid of any milk slime. And then once you're happy that everything's clean, you would then sit one of the teats in a saucer and pour cooled boiled water over it, like so. And then you would simply grab an enamel cup, pop it over the teat and the saucer, drain all of the water away, and then you're supposed to, as per the instructions, leave the teat to dry with the enamel cup still over it. So maybe placing it on your draining board or something, because rubber is easily damaged by damp, light and drafts. So by doing this, you should have a nice sterilised teat for your baby.
As mothers conducted their housework, their baby may be left in a wooden playpen on a soft rug, in their crib asleep, in their pram, or even in a nearby drawer so that they could be close by.
Okie dokie, let's turn you off. Oh my goodness me, it is so difficult to do everything one-handed. I genuinely don't know how mothers do it. Okay, so it is bath time, and in the 1930s, a baby would typically be bathed in an enamel bowl on a stand, in the household family tub, or in the sink. And today we're going to bathe Emily in the sink, except not really, but I am going to show you what a mother would have typically done. So they would have held baby, obviously minus the towel. The towel would be somewhere close by so that we're ready to wrap baby in the towel after the bath is finished. That's somewhere nearby. But they would hold baby over the bath like this, and they would use soapy hands. So they'd get a bar of soap and get their hands all nice and soapy, and then they would use that to wash baby's body and face, and then rinse baby with their hand as well. And they might also use a muslin cloth just to wipe baby's face a little bit, maybe around the eyes, more sensitive areas. And then when they were happy that baby was nice and clean, they would grab that towel, wrap baby up, and then turn baby on their belly like this, and then gently pat baby dry. So they would just gently pat all around them till they're nice and dry, and then they'd be all finished, wouldn't they? So that is basically bathing your baby in the 1930s 101. Okay, missus, what are we going to dress you in today? Ooh. I think we'll go for these and that, yes. What? There we go.
Aunt Kate also recommends that you should knit for your baby, and there was an assumption that most mothers would know how to knit or crochet. She suggests a vest, frock, pram coat to match the frock, leggings that come right up to a baby's waist so that there's no risk of a chill, a well-shaped pilch, which is like a woolly nappy for baby's outerwear, a pretty bonnet for a girl, a cap shape for a boy, and booties. All garments should be knitted in Sodar baby wool, which will return light and soft after every wash. And Aunt Kate recommends only one set for the first 9 months of the baby's life, and as long as this is properly made, it should last the baby until crawling time. She also says that no baby should ever wear more than 3 layers. She also reminds mothers the importance of allowing baby to kick freely without any clothes on a mattress covered by a warm rug, preferably in the sunshine, to build up muscle and help them become hardened. And as far as nappies went, these would be made of cotton or linen cloth, either terry cloth squares or flannelette. They would be washed using boiling water, soap and soda crystals, and then reused. After another feed, it was then time for Emily to spend time out of doors, which was a commonly used phrase that meant outside time in her pram. Parents in Britain would often leave their infant outside to get a good amount of fresh air, and Aunt Kate recommended no different. She suggests that in the summer weather, the baby should be out of doors all the time, but in colder weather, it is better to wait until after the second feed. And a moment to appreciate the pram that Emily will be spending time in. A beautiful vintage Silver Cross pram, a baby transport company first founded in 1877. And during the 30s, they were supplying prams to the royal family, and they came to be known as the Rolls-Royce of prams.
It's like an entire field trip of children going by. Okay, so this bit of the book does make me a tad uneasy because it recommends that I spend the next 20 minutes resting if possible, whilst Emily is outside my front door. Now, I've seen many television shows and films and documentaries where women would leave their babies in prams outside their front door to get that much needed fresh air, because fresh air was held in very, very high regard for developing babies. So much so was it in the 1930s that they even had something called baby cages, which, and I'm not lying, were wire cages on the outside of a building, sometimes on the second or third or fourth floor of a house, and the baby would sit in the cage, so just outside of the window, enjoying the fresh air whilst you got on with your household duties. My anxiety could never. Even leaving her just there, like she's moments away from me, she just happens to be outside and I'm inside, I can't imagine spending the next 20 minutes reading a book, resting, doing anything else other than worrying about her safety. But thank goodness Emily is not a real baby, and so I am going to spend the next 20 minutes resting whilst Emily enjoys the first bit of sunshine that we've had today. Ooh.
As I said before, a Mother's Day should all be planned around the baby's feed times, as they must not be disturbed. The mother should not do anything too strenuous before feeding and should take herself to a quiet room and be settled comfortably in a chair, preferably a nursing chair just like this one. With Emily now put to bed and likely to sleep until around 3 p.m, according to Aunt Kate, it gives the busy mother time to catch up on some much needed housework.
So Emily is currently sleeping, and it says in the book that I'm now meant to make my own midday meal and then rest before we have a little bit of outside time. So I'm probably going to just have some soup or something, just something light before I get her up and then go for a little jaunt in the sunshine. But at the moment, everyone's going to think I'm absolutely pathetic because, bless her, she's not even real. She is a doll. But I'm absolutely done in. I'm done in. But the day is still young and there's still plenty to do.
Then comes the mother's daily constitutional with her baby, which may be spent at a local park, walking around the local shops, nipping around the block, or simply relaxing in the garden. This should also start to soothe the baby to sleep, and she should stay asleep until her 6 p.m. feed. In the interim, over the next couple of hours, the mother will be preparing tea for her family, resting when she can, and mothering her baby before we settle in to the evening routine.
Hi. So it's getting near evening now, and we need to start settling Emily down, ready for bed. So we've come into the master bedroom, and I've lit a nice fire and a couple of lamps, and we're going to top and tail her, which some of you may have heard of before, but it's basically where we sponge down her face and her hands, and we also change her nappy, and that is why we have got our slop pail. So this was a household appliance item where you would dispose of household waste, for example, any slop, from wastage, or that could be human wastage, that could be food wastage, but the slop pail would help you dispose of all of that. So seeing as we're going to be top and tailing Emily, which will include changing her nappy, I've got the slop pail ready, I've got the enamel bowl ready to give her a bit of a sponge down on her hand and her face. Then we're going to get her into her nightgown, and hopefully she'll be ready for her last feed at 10 p.m. and then bedtime.
Finally, Emily should sleep until her very last feed at 10 p.m, which will give the mother chance to enjoy a light supper. In the early days, this last feed should be given whilst the mother is already in bed, and ideally someone else, potentially her husband, will put the baby to bed to allow her to get some sleep. And as for the baby's bed, it should be porous, easily cleaned and free from drafts, consisting of one hair mattress to fit the cot, a chaff overlay, a low pillow filled with chaff or hair, on no account with feathers or down, an underblanket, a small rubber drawer sheet and flannel drawer sheet, an enveloping blanket, a porous coverlet, and no canopy or side draperies.
This routine is from 95 years ago. And although motherhood may have expanded throughout the decades from traditional expectations, I believe that the core values remain very much the same. And one of those is self-sacrifice, to a degree that I can barely fathom. Adjusting your entire existence to cater for a new little life. Muddying through all of the firsts, all of the mistakes, all of the terror, all of the joy, until, well, there is no until. A mother is always a mother. That's one thing that has never changed.